Buying faulty products off eBay will always be a gamble, especially when the seller explicitly says it does not turn on and there's no sign of life. That didn't stop me though. Today we're taking a look at this ThinkPad T440s I bought for only £20. For such a low price, there must be something terribly wrong, right? Well, stick around to find out. If you do enjoy my videos and want to see more, then a like and sub will be greatly appreciated. Anyways, let's take a look at this faulty ThinkPad and see if we can bring it back to life. The T440s was released way back in 2013 and were made as a slimmer alternative to the T440, hence the S suffix. If you've seen the T440, trust me, it needed a thinner version. Compared to many other laptops of the time, it actually looks surprisingly modern and quite comparable to the T480 in form factor. A quick look on the Wayback Machine reveals them to be around £1,000 to £1,500, which is honestly crazy to think of. This by no means was a budget ThinkPad. 10 years on, you can find them relatively cheap. I bought this T440s for £20 on eBay. It was described to be faulty with no power. With it being essentially dead, I thought would it not be fun to experiment with it? For only £20, I wouldn't be losing out on much and can part it out to recoup any losses. So I bought it as it seemed too good to pass, even if it was faulty. Let's take a look, shall we? Here we have yet another ThinkPad, this one being a supposed faulty T440s. Let's open this bad boy up and see what it's all about. Alright, I've already cut open the box so I can spare you the horror of me trying to open this, but there it is in a nice inflated plastic sleeve. Alright, let's just take it out and see what it looks like. And just throw this box away. And there it is, the T440s. So this cost around £20 on eBay, and apparently it's broken, but who knows, maybe we can fix it and bring it back to life. For some reason my mic cut off, so I'll just narrate this part. The overall condition looked to be pretty sound with barely any noticeable scuffs and marks, just your usual wear and tear you'd expect with an over 10-year-old ThinkPad. Same can be said about the back, which to be honest looked very clean. Let's take a closer look at this thing and see what it's all about. So far so good. Like I said, the front and back are in almost perfect shape with barely any visible scuffs and scratches. Interestingly, there's no rub coating on the front, which you'd normally expect with a T-series ThinkPad. Perhaps a previous owner magic erased it to oblivion, but to be honest, I honestly don't mind. The sides look to be in good order too. Opening up the ThinkPad, there's one thing that's immediately obvious. Where on earth did that enter key go? Good thing is, the membrane and hinge are present, so it wouldn't be too hard to replace. I know the listing mentions it to be faulty, but who knows, it just might show some signs of life. Let's take a look, shall we? Okay, here is the ThinkPad T440s. Now the seller described the ThinkPad as not posting, so let's confirm to see if that's true or not. So let's just plug it into the power and see if there's any life. Okay, so the red light is blinking, so hopefully there's power to the motherboard. To be fair, it looks pretty good. Obviously, I'll do some B-roll shots so you can obviously have a better look at that. But the screen looks in good condition. The keyboard looks in good condition, except the enter key because it's not there. But everything else looks to be in order. All right. Okay, moment of truth. 3, 2, 1. Okay. It's booting up. Is there going to be any display? Oh my god. Wait, what? Hold on. Guys, I am not faking this. This is crazy. What the hell? Wait, it booted up? What? Okay, I was not expecting that. I was just expecting maybe a few error beeps or the screen like flickering, because it could be a screen issue, you know? That's probably why it wasn't posting. But I guess it did. I guess it posted straight into the BIOS. So what are we working with then? We're working with an i7 4600U CPU, 2.1 GHz and 4 GB of RAM, which I'm pretty sure is soldered onto the motherboard. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But otherwise, I think it's working. I mean, I can't confirm it. Is the hinge okay? Yeah, I mean, it's not flickering or anything. That is a common issue with these. It's working. There are some, I've just noticed it now, there are some pressure marks, pressure points on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. I don't know if you can see that or not, if you can catch it on the camera. Other than that, I mean, it's working, isn't it? Oh my god, this is crazy. All right, let's confirm. Okay, so the CMOS battery is working because it does recognize the date. Is there any password on the ThinkPad? All right, let's just confirm. All right, supervisor password disabled. That's good. Let's go into anti-theft to see if there's any compute trace. Right, disabled. And disabled, okay. All right, that's another win. All right, so there's no compute trace, there's no BIOS password. We're good on that front. All right, let's go. Now I have no clue how the ThinkPad turned on. My initial thought was the seller probably didn't check it properly or could have mixed it up with another ThinkPad. But then I checked the listing and it is indeed the same ThinkPad as there's no enter key present. So honestly, I have no idea how it's working, but I ain't complaining. It makes this video that bit more interesting. Anyways, let's take a better look at the T440s and give it a few upgrades. Okay, let's put some RAM and an SSD inside the ThinkPad and clean it out if it needs it. All right, so let's just take it apart, turn the thing around, and all right, it would be easy if it was this way. Okay, so let's just unlatch the battery, just like that, leave it on the side, and just take out all of these screws. All right, with all of the screws out of the way, we can finally take off the back panel and see what this ThinkPad is all about. And there it is, the ThinkPad T440s. If I'm not mistaken, we do not have any RAM, and we also don't have an SSD inside it, which I already knew about when buying. Other observations, we've got a Wi-Fi card, what looks like a 4G modem card, an external battery, which is nice. Yeah, other than that, everything else is included. All right, let's add some RAM, put an SSD inside it, and clean out that fan, because that fan is looking kind of dusty. And obviously replace the thermal paste, because I feel like this ThinkPad might need it. All right, let's do that real quick. All right, before we work on any components, make sure to always take out the internal battery. Disconnect, I mean, all right. Easy does it, there you go. So this is just an 8GB stick of DDR3L RAM. Let's just put it into the socket and we should be on its maximum capacity. All right, what we have here is a standard Kingston SSD, SATA based obviously, because this only supports SATA. 480 gigs, which should be plentiful for this ThinkPad. Let's put it in, and all right, let's make sure to put it in. All right, let me do this real quick, 1 minute. Okay, so when we don't have a hard drive caddy in the ThinkPad, because sometimes they forget to put it in, what I like to do is just put a bit of blue tack on the bottom of the, well, it should be on this side, just a bit of blue tack on the bottom of the SSD, so it kind of stays level with the connector. So let's just do that real quick. Put it in and it should be nice and flush. There you go. Yeah, and it's not wobbling around. It's nice and flat. Should be okay. So let's now take apart this heatsink and see what we have underneath. All right, let me just do this. All right, that's out of the way and we should be able to take it out. Okay, there it is. So this is the heatsink of the T440s, and to be fair, the thermal paste does look kind of fresh. You know what? I'll apply some new thermal paste anyways, because it's always good to give it a new repaste. But yeah, that fan is kind of dirty, so let me just brush it off, get rid of all the dust. Anyways, let's clean this thermal paste. Let me put some isopropyl alcohol on a bit of tissue and just wipe off that excess thermal paste on the CPU die. Okay, should be good enough. And let's apply some new thermal paste on the two dies, just a little pea size. Okay, that is screwed together, and the final thing we need to do now is connect the battery in so it can actually recognize it. All right, let's put that in, and there you go. All right, we've basically done everything there is to this ThinkPad. Let's put the back panel on, screw it in together, and turn on this bad boy. Okay, we're booting into Windows, finally. That took around a good 5-10 minutes, but we're finally there. All right, let's just go into Windows and do all the magic that needs to be done. After waiting endlessly for those updates to install, the ThinkPad T440s is finally ready. And there's two things that I want to point out. The first one, and this is kind of on the negative side, is there's some weird flickering going on the right hand edge of the screen. I don't know how visible that is, but from the naked eye, it is quite there and it is quite of an eyesore. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is quite good and it makes this ThinkPad a lot more better, is it's actually touchscreen. Look at that. That's actually pretty neat, isn't it? Now, I didn't even know T440s came with touchscreen panels, but apparently they do. Now, think about this. We paid £20 for a faulty ThinkPad. I mean, it was supposed to be faulty. It came working straight out of the box and has a touchscreen panel. Like, this video is just getting better and better as it goes on. Honestly, this is pretty mad. So I have no words. I mean, that is pretty sick. Like I said, I've never seen a touchscreen ThinkPad T440s. I didn't even know they did them. But checking the specification spreadsheet, it's definitely an option, and who knows how much this would have cost back in the day. Because remember, this has the best CPU. It did come with 8 GB of RAM. I think this is a pretty good ThinkPad, like straight out of the box. Well, it would have been back in the day. Anyways, let's go into Task Manager to see what specs we're working with. All right, to Task Manager, go into Performance. Okay, so for the CPU, we have an i7 4600U at 2.1 GHz, 2 cores and 4 threads. I mean, that would have been a good CPU back in the day, but now you really want at least 4 cores and 8 threads, don't you? But who knows, the CPU might surprise me in the benchmarks. So for memory, we have 12 GB of DDR3 because we did upgrade it from 4 to 12 GB. And 4 GB is soldered onto the motherboard, so there's only one DIMM slot free. So we occupied that with an 8 GB stick. And it has 12 GB of DDR3 running at 1600 MHz. So for the disk, we have 2 disks for some reason. I'll get onto that later. So for disk 0, we have a standard 120 gig SSD. I did replace the SSD in this because for some reason I was getting some weird errors, and the SSD in this works as normal. But this is quite strange with the disk 1. For some reason, there's a 16 GB SanDisk SSD in this system. Like what? Who configured this with a 16 GB, or who put a 16 GB SanDisk SSD in this ThinkPad? Like, what is the point? I mean, there is an SD card slot. Like, wouldn't you rather use that? For Wi-Fi, we have your standard wireless AC. Like I said, would have been good 10 years ago. But as long as it works, I don't really have any complaints. And for the GPU, we of course have your favorite Intel HD graphics. Of course, we'll see how good the CPU and GPU are in benchmarks. So let's do that real quick and see how good this ThinkPad really is. Another thing I wanted to check is the battery. How good is the battery in this T440s? And remember, this is a 10-year-old ThinkPad, so I'm not expecting really good results, but we'll see nonetheless. So let me go into Vantage. So we do have 2 batteries in this ThinkPad, which is pretty cool. So battery details. Okay, that is pretty surprising. All right, let's go from battery 1 to battery 2. So with battery 1, we have 472 cycles. I mean, that's not that bad. I mean, 10 years, you have to think about that, don't you? Full charge capacity, 13.33 watt hours, and design capacity, 23. So we've lost essentially 10 watt hours in the space of 10 years, which I'd say is okay. And yeah, it does say right there, manufactured date, 12/17/2014, and first use date in 2015. Okay, so this was used quite late in its lifetime. And for battery 2, this is where it gets a lot more crazy. The battery 2 has 1,149 cycles. That's crazy. I mean, how is it still running? So design capacity, 23.48 watt hours, same as the other one. And full charge capacity, 11.54. So with 1,000 cycles, it's only lost like 12 watt hours. With 2 batteries, it does make it a bit more better because obviously it's combining both, so you'll have a bit more longevity when using the device. Other than that, I have no words. 1,100 cycles is quite crazy, and it does show how heavily used this ThinkPad really is. Another thing I wanted to check is the health of that SSD. I mean, the 120 gig SSD is basically new, but let's see that 16 gig SSD that this person put in this ThinkPad. And okay, so power on count 6,679 and power on hours 1,203. And what does that equate to in days? 50 days. Okay, so not that long. So I feel like they might have upgraded this ThinkPad later down the line, but 6 gigabytes, I mean, what's the point really? Like, use the SD card. Other than that, I mean, it's not terrible. So the first benchmark that we have here is Cinebench R23. Let's see how good that i7 4600U really is with those mighty 2 cores and 4 threads. Alright, let's run the test and see what score we get.
Now I know 2 cores and 4 threads are nothing to write home about, but in this case of something so cheap, surely it would have to be terrible for me to judge it harshly. Using the T440s up to this point was honestly buttery smooth, indifferent to something like a P14s, which I've covered in a previous video. Perhaps it was the additional RAM or the i7 in this machine, ain't half bad.
Okay, so we finally got the score and we got 1,438. I mean, to be honest, I'm quite impressed with that. I was expecting like in the low thousands, maybe under 1,000, but to get 1,400 points on Cinebench R23, it's not too bad. Alright, let's see how the Intel HD graphics do in some graphical tests, and at the end, we'll judge how good this ThinkPad really is. So here we have Heaven Benchmark running on the T440s. Let's see what score we get. So I have it set to its native resolution, which is 1080p. Normally when we start the benchmark, we do see a little preview. And okay, we're getting less than 10 FPS. Oh, that's not too good. But let's see what score we do get at the end of the test. Who knows, maybe it might surprise me.
This was honestly kinda sad. Yes, I know we were working with Intel HD graphics, but sometimes I do forget how awful they were. Even back in the day, they were never up to the task. This only makes me want to cover an AMD based ThinkPad since Vega graphics were always on top. At least it didn't crash, I'll give it that. Anyways, let's see what score we get.
That is abysmal, honestly. 7.1 FPS and the score 178. Now, if you watched the last video where I covered the L450, we did get a pretty bad score on that, and I honestly thought I'd never see a worse score than that. We don't care about the score, do we? Let's play some games on it and see how good they really are. And by games, I mean Minecraft, because I like to test Minecraft.
Anyways, in Minecraft Java, I was hoping to see better results. However, that never came to fruition. On medium settings at 8 chunks, 1080p, we saw a measly average of only 39 with frequent dips, which is quite apparent when flying around. I won't be too harsh on it, given I am running the latest version of Minecraft with 10-year-old hardware. At least I can move around, to an extent. Let's talk a bit more on the usability of the ThinkPad. Opening applications was honestly not too bad, few hiccups here and there, but generally good. Browsing the web was nice and snappy, again not too much in delays. The keyboard was functional, to an extent, but all keys registered. Tapping on this ThinkPad is honestly unmatched. Lenovo do know how to make a good keyboard, it has to be said. Trackpads and track buttons are functional. This features the controversial trackpad which many people despise. In my opinion, it ain't half bad, but can be quite loud at times. I do understand why Lenovo backtracked and brought back the old trusted trackpad everyone knows and loves. This T440s features the old style fingerprint sensor, which I actually prefer to the old one. I find it a whole lot more accurate. The screen has a few prominent pressure marks here and there and sort of flickering, but it does produce some nice colours, so there's that. Touchscreen also works very well. And of course, the audio test. Again, not bad for a 10-year-old ThinkPad. A few nitpicks that I have with the T440s is there's no caps lock light, which can get quite annoying at times, and there's also no HDMI support, which is quite a big deal breaker. Overall, for something that was supposed to be faulty, I'm very pleased with my purchase. Don't think I've ever been that lucky with a ThinkPad. Anyways, I've pretty much covered everything there is to this ThinkPad. What do you think about the T440s? Leave your thoughts down below. I honestly wasn't planning the video to go this way, but glad nonetheless. If you did enjoy this video, then a like and sub would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.